2 more weeks.
Wait, I thought this was the August meeting.
September's always good.
So
October is.
I agree.
So our Jefferson County Local Development Corporation meeting has been called to order. Is there any guests which want privilege of the floor? Okay, with that, we'll move on to our board packet, page 3, our minutes from our prior meeting of July 7th. Do we have a motion to accept them as presented?
So moved.
Second. Okay, any other discussion or amendments? Okay, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Treasurer's report of July 31st, 2022 is on page 6 of your packet, please.
Only a couple notable things in the treasurer's report this month. The expenses are down 11 grand from the previous month when compared to revenues. Programs all are in line. When you get to the balance sheet, that's where you see the major changes, and that was due primarily to 1.209 million in ARPA funds for the food grant and the child care grant. We'll talk about those again when we see the IDA balance sheet. So that shows our total liabilities in capital has a significant change, but that's the reason why from those two line items. A change in the receivables. The report showed DePrenzio's Kitchen and Market with 30 days in arrears. That's been cleaned up and they're now current, correct, Joy?
Yes.
And that's the only thing I have in the LDC Treasurer's report unless somebody has a question.
I have one. Page 8, we had talked in a prior meeting about staff looking at adjusting or amending the budget for manufacturing because we're getting rather close to having spent it all. I don't know if staff considers that.
Yeah, amending the budget is not as straightforward as you might think.
Okay.
If we amend the budget, we have to go back to the state, reopen our submission of the budget, and then resubmit it.
Okay.
Which we've already done.
And that's not a good thing in the state.
Okay. That's fair.
A minor adjustments in the budget during the year, I think, as long as they're explained, I would recommend just not changing.
Okay. That's fair.
But the question was, I
Well, I
don't
think-
believe we've had any discussions on changing.
Yeah.
Or,
I mean, we may not spend the remaining balance, which is only $980, but there's a lot of year left.
Well, and going forward, I believe adjustments will be made for next year's budget, which we'll be bringing to you for approval. September, is what that is?
So the committee will meet in September, so October.
October, it has 90 days for the end.
Oh, 90 days.
Yeah, before it's your fiscal year.
and I,
And now we have a new fiscal year, right? I was confused. I was panicking yesterday. Shoot, we have to have the budget. Oh, that's right.
Same thing.
That was the only question. Thanks for the explanation.
You're thinking, oh, we only got a month
Yeah,
left.
I was panicking.
any
yesterday,
other
so we got the-
questions? If not, I make a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, I'll ask the question again. No other discussion or questions on the report? Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion carries. Committee report, Jay, Jefferson County Ag Development.
Not a lot to report. We've been continuing to follow through on the food resiliency grants. We have most of the contracts back in and signed, the insurance in, so people are able to move forward with their projects. There's a few that are slow, and that's only because it's that busy time of the year for those folks. They've let me know that they'll get them in just as soon as they're done with their field work and so on. But it's been great to see the excitement from the businesses that are interested or that are participating in the program. On a different note, our office, Cornell Cooperative Extension, and the Thousand Islands Tourism Council are starting to put together a agritourism committee, workforce, whatever you want to call it, to look at agritourism here in Jefferson County, reinvigorate the efforts that we used to have with Gary DeYoung way back when. So that'll be a slow process, but a good process nonetheless. An interesting note, something that our board of directors, all of you have been aware of and been concerned about, Here in the United States right now, we are losing about 2,000 acres of prime farmland per day. That means that a farm, well, basically in 3 days, you'll lose a farm the size of North Harbor Dairy. So that's pretty significant. And the other issue is farmland is being bought up by foreign countries that aren't necessarily friendly and individuals that are, it's interesting to find out what their interest is in agriculture. So it's a continuing concern, a growing concern, and something that we certainly are aware of here in Jefferson County in the North Country with the amount of alternative energy projects that are coming in on our farmland. So I just thought I'd mention that. Saw the study yesterday and wanted to share it with all of you.
Do you have data specific to Jefferson County? We're probably not losing 2,000 acres a day, I'm assuming.
No, not per day.
That would be the
That's in the
county in a
United
week.
States. Yeah, we'd be done. We'd be done. No, I could, it'll take me a little bit, but I can.
No,
certainly know some
only if
figures.
you just had that snippet, but are we on a percentage basis? I know there's a lot of agricultural land in the US. I couldn't even begin how many square miles, but are we in a similar percentage or much, much lower?
Let me do the research on that.
It'd be interesting to
Yeah.
understand where we are on that bell curve.
Yeah.
I would assume we're far to the left.
Yeah, I would think so, that because of the strength of agriculture
Yeah.
here, it's a less percentage.
And I think we've had the foresight to cite the renewable energy projects on less than prime farmland. That's been a debate for
Well,
2 years.
we've been certainly encouraging that. I don't know if we're accomplishing that yet, so but we're encouraging it.
Well, but I think if you look at that guideline, coming back to the renewable energy projects, there were 2 circuit breakers in there. One, 20% of the project was acceptable. I mean, that was one of the guidelines, am I not? That's carried itself through, that it would be acceptable for a project to take up to 20% of its acreage out. That would appease the landowner and allow for some adjustments. Is that still part of the
So-
policy?
I'm part of our policy.
Yeah, the counties. Well, for-
Not that I'm aware of. There's no, that I'm aware of, other than on decommissioning, there's been no policy put in place. We've talked about it, but we haven't put anything in place to actually protect prime farmland from alternative energy projects.
Well,
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I'm forgetting something.
Well, I'm just going back to discussion that was thrown out.
I think we only discussed it that. Yeah, I
Well,
don't think we ever really got to a point. We also haven't had large enough projects to really have any.
We're on the
significant
verge
impact.
of having.
Oh, we are. We definitely have 2 that are very significant and maybe have some prime farmland in them.
Yeah.
In fact, we know one does.
Well, I go back to Ron's, and Ron had made the statement to me before that on his project, if there would be less than 20% of his project would qualify as prime farmland. So all that acreage, that we're going to be looking at under solar very soon, a lot of that is not prime farmland.
I wouldn't want to comment on that until I actually were able to evaluate the flow.
data.
Anything else for Jay?
Yeah, go ahead, Rob. So while we're talking about farmland and solar, one thing I think we have to look at is, do we have an idea how much leased land is used by agriculture? How much of the land that's actively in production is leased in this county? And my question would be is, watching to see the pressure for competition for that leased acreage as we remove other land from production. We talk at the Borlex project, you're taking hundreds and hundreds of acres of land that's in production now out. Are they going to downsize their operation, or are they going to go out and compete for leased land to expect to continue the same size or increase their operation? So, what we heard in Western New York was that the competition for leased land is pushing up the leased land values, which puts additional pressure on agricultural producers.
Whether the farm goes out and competes for additional leased land, or they just lease part of their property, they just say, okay, we can dedicate this and use the revenue stream to build infrastructure on the farm, it still increases that pressure on leased land prices. Because.
Well, I think that's something we have to watch going forward to see.
Yeah. But the answer to your first question is, I would have to go back and research the data, and I'm afraid that the last set of data that I could look at for leased land would probably be the 2017 ag census. So I'd have to look and see, so that.
Do they
data
do collect
might-
that data in that census? They collect that?
Yes, I believe so.
You know, as the
Have to
smaller
go-
farms go out, that creates availability of leased land. So it could be a wash item, but I think that's something we have to watch as we consider these projects. What pressure is that going to put on producers in the form of competition for leased land?
Right.
I mean, I think that's going on. You got the non-farm owner that leases. He looks at these advantages of these solar projects over leasing to a farm. He's gonna go the solar direction. And that's gonna put more pressure on that farmer to go find that, to recoup that land.
Or to
somewhere
Paul's
else.
point,
Being ahead.
go to a larger farm that's willing to pay more and kick out a small farm.
I think,
That's, I think, part of your point is, somebody's leasing for $30 an acre, which is dirt cheap, and larger farm comes in and says, I'll give you 60.
Well, I just
Some
think
people
it's
are gonna
something
take
we
the
have,
60, and then the small farms get pressure.
I think it's
Small
just something we
medium
have to be aware of that could happen and we should be watching for.
Yeah.
To see what those impacts are.
get pressure. Rob, you had a question.
I know Jace, you're not self-promoting, but I did want to plug his, the Jay's Rural America, right? Jim
The
Massey's Rural America.
podcast.
He actually talked about these issues on his podcast. I had listened this morning, he talked about the 2,000 acres per day, and it's honestly, you learn a lot about Jefferson County agriculture.
Yeah, he's doing a good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's very informative.
Good quality.
And there's some fun stuff too.
I can't believe that.
But it's an easy download. It's actually a well-produced podcast. I enjoy listening.
Well, thanks.
Very appreciated.
Jay spends a lot of time after the interview doing the editing to make sure everything sounds great when you listen to it.
Anything else? We'll move on to manufacturing and more for ag.
I just want to say to Paul's point, though, that trend is going on. No question about it, as far as the land, even without the solar. But the other trend that to look for, and it's part of an offset, which I think is a good one, is a lot of that land that's being displaced going under solar, and those individuals have to find more land to replace it. They're coming to more marginal farmland and putting that into cultivation. You're seeing it. I mean, the whole.
But our
Shamal-
goal should be pushing the solar projects, hoping they go to the more marginal land.
Yep.
Away
Yep,
from
exactly.
so.
One of the problems you have with that I've seen out there is they don't have the interconnects on some of these marginal areas of the county.
Oh, there's
They
no
don't-
question about
They
that.
don't have the power lines or the interconnects, so that's why it's tough away from that.
It's the low hanging fruit they're after right now.
KJ,
Yeah.
last note.
One last note is the thing that's encouraging right now is, and I'm seeing it with this food resiliency grant program, is the amount of small farms that are trying to get started up, not in dairy, but getting started up in regular vegetable and small and large livestock production for proteins. That's very encouraging, and that I think is part of the future of agriculture here in the North Countries. We're better able to assist, and the climate is changing enough so that those types of operations are gaining a bigger foothold here in Northern New York. So thank you.
Okay, let's move to manufacturing.
There's two things. One, I think I mentioned, we're planning now, still recruiting businesses to host tours for Manufacturing Day in October. We're looking at October 14th this year. And we're planning another, we're talking to Lewis County. We did, back in March, we did a joint Manufacturers Alliance Roundtable in Carthage at the Zero Dock Street facility, mostly focused on workforce. We're looking to do another one this fall after we get past Manufacturing Day. But again, bringing manufacturers back together and bringing in groups like the Shipley Center and Clarkson, some of those other agencies or things that can offer services to manufacturing.
Monster edition.
Marketing.
Good morning, everybody. Before I get started on the grant stuff, do we have a specific on the agenda for the grants?
Okay. Next thing after this.
Today, I'm going to Case Middle School. They're hosting a quick little mini career jam for some of their summer school students. And I guess there'll be about 50 of them. And we're gonna have about 8 to 10 different businesses that have set up tables to talk to the summer school students. And I'm looking forward to it, talk about their careers. There's gonna be a couple manufacturers there, IBEW, so it's a good thing.
Great. The next unfinished business, we've got 3 sets of grants. They all fall under the ARPA funds provided by the county through the federal government. So just in summary, page 24, page 33, page 34, rental property deferment, small business productivity, encumbered worker training. You were gonna lead this, so I was just gonna let you take it over from here, kind of identify how you selected, how much of the, I guess, budget allocation you spent. I think the first one is 400K. We're spending not spending, awarding 393.
Yes.
If you can kind of hit those highlights.
Sure.
The board can kind of ask you questions.
Yeah, a couple quick things. We allow, you have to be a resident of Jefferson County. That's where you file your taxes. We were gonna do, so when it first started, we didn't know about how many applicants we were gonna receive. So, I said, okay, you can file for more than one application for more than one project. We're awarding one project per person. And so as you'll see on the spreadsheet where it says one grant per person, that would mean that they received an award for a different project. And so we defaulted to the more expensive or impactful project. So we had a number of people apply from outside the area, Syracuse, Texas, Florida, where they own property in Jefferson County, but we're limiting it to residents of Jefferson County where they're primary residents. So we got a number of applicants. It's been a great program. It's been a eye-opening process to go through to hear what some of these landlords have gone through. I've heard horror stories about it. Yes, so we're about, I think that our total's like 396 or 393 of the 525 or the 425. So there will be some additional. I do already have my third waiting list. We were able to, when we went down to one project per person, we're able to take everybody from the waiting list and put them into the process for this one. But I have another waiting list started for next month. This is going to take a little while to get through the funds. The applicants, they have to do the project and then be reimbursed. And as the grant award, which I'm recommending, which I'm hoping you will approve, is an up to figure. So if their project is $12,500, they got a $10,000 award. That means that they have up to that 10. It's pretty self-explanatory, but I wanted to mention it. So if they instead spend $10,000 on the project, they would receive $8,000 in award. So really that award number is an up to award. And,
no more than 80%.
No more than 80% of the project, up to $10,000.
Okay. Cool. All right.
No, you want to mention Reg?
Yeah, and we did have one where we're part of our group to decide who is getting what. The Neighbors of Watertown Executive Director R.J. Schweitzer, and he abstained from his application.
I noticed one of them I read, it was destroyed during COVID by the tenants.
Yeah.
So how do you handle, there was a couple, at least one I read where it was an owner occupied duplex.
Yes.
Okay, are we providing money to upgrade their
No.
rental unit?
Nope. Everything has to be on their side, and we're gonna follow that pretty closely.
So it's going to be only on the tenant?
Only on the tenant side.
Perfect.
Yep.
I have no other questions.
Page 24 through 32 is our first rental property deferred maintenance grant, again, under the ARPA. So we had a $425,000 allotment from the grant from the county through federal government. We are presently considering the award of $393,200 of that based on the criteria that Marshall just determined, these 90-some pages. So there could be a motion from the board to accept this list as presented.
So moved.
The award grants, okay, Rob, a first, a second, please. John, a second. Any further discussion on the award process, the award values, the program? Anything?
Have you got the money from the county for these? Yeah.
It's
Yeah, we-
coming today, it's being wire transferred to Nick.
We had our first payment by check back after, once we executed the contract.
That was for the food and the
Right. And for the,
education
right.
and childcare.
And
They'll all
then,
be out to
then we got into the system, so the next one is being wired for the next payment.
Rob, I'm gonna abstain. My company's working with a lot of these people.
Okay, no, that's fair. So with that, we have a first, a second, no discussion has been asked, so we'll ask for a vote. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
We had one abstention, and no one opposed. Okay, motion carries. Next program, small business productivity improvement, 2 applicants.
Yep. We had, the last board meeting, we approved, I think it was 37 projects or something like that. I can't remember exactly on the productivity. We had 2 more come in this month, an agriculture project and a daycare project. They both look like great projects. The agriculture one is close to $50,000, so we're leveraging into a impactful project for that business. And the daycare one has a technology side, automating their in and out of kids and staff, and which is also has a nice safety aspect to it. So we're excited about these projects.
Page 33 of our packet, small business productivity improvement, again, part of the ARPA award. 20,000 allotment on this particular tranche. Do you know where we are with the, like, was there 500,000 allowed, or what was the total?
There's
allowed?
425 for those 2 small business ones. Between the productivity and the training, we have 425 total.
Okay, and you
So
don't recall how much we did the first tranche, clearly below the 425?
Yes,
It was below, yeah.
considerably below.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We had a number of projects that were not full awards on the productivity too.
Okay. I remember it was a long list and it didn't, I'm thinking it was like 125 or 140 or something is what I have in my mind, but I have a lot of things in my mind that aren't true anymore.
Yeah, so our working guideline for now, we're using, they say 200 for the training and 225 for the productivity, but we'll see.
Okay.
We can
We're a
adjust
long
on
way
that.
from that on the
All right,
program. Or on the
if I
training.
can ask for a motion to accept these 2 applicants as evaluated and awarded $20,000 for small business productivity improvement.
So moved.
Christina
Second.
first, Lisa second. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Page 34 of our packet, again, 2 applicants, 18,800 in total incumbent worker training, again, part of the ARPA grant awards. Marshall?
Yes, the 2 new incumbent worker projects, one being Great Lakes Cheese, the other one being Thousand Islands Winery. They're good projects. The applicant for the Great Lakes Cheese one took my brief explanation of the project to heart and put just audit preparation there. And so, but I did talk to him, and it's a good project to train their people on this particular on audit preparation. So,
Okay.
Thousand Islands Winery is the other one, training project. I recommend them both.
Page 30.
Quick
Go
question.
ahead.
How many employees does TI Winery have?
I don't know. I'm gonna have to check on that.
Jay,
Yeah, Thousand Islands Winery right now has approximately 50
Okay.
employees between their full-time permanent and their seasonal employees. Their full-time seasonal is or full-time permanent is right around 25 to 30 of that 50. We're working with them to help them access other economic development funds right now. They're doing a big expansion on their wine slushy line. So it's kind of exciting to see the winery grow.
Okay. I have a motion from the board to accept the list as presented.
Yes.
Paul first, a second?
Second.
Dave, a second. Any further discussion?
Is that an 80-20 cap? Is that 80% of the project? as
yes.
well?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm gonna abstain.
Okay, one abstention. John Jennings abstained. None opposed. Okay, motion does carry. Childcare project update, whom? Dave or Marsh?
Should be. So there were, if you recall, there were a couple components to the childcare. So one is the training through JCC, Small Business Development Center, and CAPC doing the training. There's a cohort going through that training right now, about 10 to 11 trainees. They start around 20, but typically they start high and a few people kind of drop out. So that's a pretty good number. In terms of funding equipment to help a lot of these, for the home-based daycare getting started, it might be things to meet code, carbon monoxide detectors or different equipment that might need. We've done about $10,700 in grants to 16 different home-based daycare facilities to date. And for the assistance to the center-based daycare programs, again, we're providing up to $30,000 up to 2 new positions, full-time positions, or it can be prorated for part-time. And also doing retention payments for staff that have been able to stay on. So to date, we've done about retention payments. We funded for about 99 full-time people and 14 part-time, and have funded for new positions, 6 full-time positions and 2 new part-time positions.
All right, thanks, Dave. Anything else under unfinished business that's unfinished? No. Justin, nothing from council in this meeting, I'm assuming.
No, sir.
Hello, thank you. Any new business? Okay, we ask for an adjournment from the board.
Yes.
Paul first. Second. Bill, okay. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
This meeting stands adjourned. Okay. So that concludes our LDC meeting. IDA meeting, is called to order. Our August 4th, 2017 IDA meeting. We've done the pledge. There are some guests now. Anyone for privilege of the floor? Okay. Our minutes are on both page 3 and page 6. We have a scheduled meeting and a special meeting. So page 3 and page 6, you have the minutes. Are there any questions? Otherwise, ask for the board to make a motion.
So moved.
Okay, Lisa, first, second, please.
Second.
John, second. Any other discussion or questions on the 2 sets of minutes? Okay, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
The minutes carry. Treasurer's report starts on page 8. Paul, please.
Okay, last month, the question was asked by Rob of expectations of pilot sale leaseback fees, whether we expected to meet those numbers. Lyle went through the projects that are currently in the pipeline for approval, either pending or close. We're going to be dealing with 2 today, and if everything closes, we'll exceed the remaining balance. Should be north of $1 million.
Luckily, we have 2 extra months this year to get
Okay.
that. Otherwise, we would not have got it done by October.
And I'm pleased to point out to everyone that our YMCA numbers are declining, which means we will most likely see those continue to go. Thank goodness that project is on its way and it's off our books. I'm going to go to Lyle a bit on the balance sheet, because it's the ARPA money again that has made major swings in our total liabilities and capital. It's down about $2.26 million, and that's because of the transfer of the ARPA money to the LDC for the grant projects.
Correct.
And that's a little over $2.3 million, if my numbers are correct.
2.2.
$2.2 million. So those were the major changes if you compare the balance sheet to last month, are mostly due to the ARPA monies coming in and then going right out to the LDC. Nothing notable on any of the revolving loan funds. RBM Manufacturing, they are now current, Joy.
Yes.
It had showed 2 months in arrears, but they're now current. And that is all I really have. There's no significant changes in the microloan fund receivables and the delinquencies. They're the same individuals and companies we've talked about in the past.
Do you feel comfortable with Standard Auto? They're gonna catch up?
No, I don't.
Really? Already? Really?
Yes. And a couple of others we're working with. Absolutely.
You're talking about Standard Machine.
You won't return our calls. And one other, but, no, it's going to be one of those accounts we recommend reserving to write off at the end of the year. And then take action from there.
Okay.
And I have nothing else unless there's other questions.
No, we have a motion to accept the report, Paul?
Yes.
Okay, a second, please?
Second.
Second. Any other discussion on the treasurer's report? Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries and the report's accepted. Committee reports, I think it's Paul again, so page
Yes, it would
19
be.
and 22.
We've had 2 meetings since our last IDA meeting with the alternative energy to review the 2 projects that are on the agenda for later in the meeting. I felt the committee was supportive of moving those forward to the initial project resolution. I will tell you that we're struggling with the issue of battery storage and how to value that. We've sent this forward. And Lyle and I have worked on the projections in the project review. I'm going to tell you they're as best as we can do. It's hard to estimate what the taxes are going to be when the state hasn't finalized or come out of their temporary restraining order on their evaluation model. We've used that model to estimate the impacts, but that's the best we can do. It's consistent. The software really isn't geared for solar projects as we review them. So Justin was a big help with the batteries storage, so we're moving forward with that. We do have 2 large-scale, utility-scale projects that are moving forward. The ORES held a hearing in Hounsfield, I forget, last week or the week before. There's some new postings on that. And the Tracy project in Orleans and Clayton has its permit been deemed complete, but they haven't issued the draft permit regulations yet. And if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them, or if anyone of the committee has anything additional.
Any questions?
So on those 2 projects, which is gonna kick the can over on 100% taxation with the county, where's the discussion back and forth? I mean, they're
Well,
leaving.
Bill brought up that at some point we had to bring the county in to find out what their position's going to be on these if we get an application. Currently, we have no applications from a utility scale project.
Yeah.
I don't see how we're going to be able to move forward very fast on them until the state finishes and coming out of this temporary restraining order. I talked to another county director who basically says the state is not interacting with them at all on how this is going to happen. Roger Tibbetts from the town of Watertown contacted ORPS, which is the under tax and finance. And all he got back was a one line saying, oh, the temporary restraining order is still into effect. No, we're hoping to get through this, or what they expect to happen. So,
But we're still using that, as Paul said, using that to project the estimated assessment, which,
that's the
Yeah,
best
right.
we can do at this point.
Yeah.
So,
it does actually bring the value down lower than what we were doing before, so.
yes.
Okay. If no other questions, we'll move to plan review. So Dave, you were absent. I think I chaired this meeting, or did you, John? I think I chaired.
You did it from the,
Okay, I can't
Yep.
recall. So loan review, July 27th, we actually discussed and reviewed the two projects that are under later in this agenda, Watertown Renewables, essentially north and south projects. It's one parcel, but it was split up into two projects to meet some state mandates. As Paul indicated, they both had battery storage, which is not unique, but we're looking at it differently, because Oya had battery storage in one of their first projects, or a project, correct?
They added it after our initial
Okay.
review.
So we never really got a chance to look at it.
Not in the initial
Okay.
review.
And there are some different rules now than 5 years ago.
And this battery storage is part of that program with National Grid for, I forget, it has a special.
non-wired alternative.
Non-wired alternatives too, so.
So what it does is help, they basically the power gets stored in the batteries, and then when at high peak demand hours, they release that.
Just balances it.
So currently does Oya have battery storage integrated in their system? Is it on site and integrated into the system?
We've
Or is
been
it
told it is.
Is it?
I'm billing at the higher rate for it, so. If they don't have it, they're going to complain.
So at the conclusion of loan review, we recommended to move the two projects to the full board. You'll see those under council later, and that's essentially the sum of loan review. Is there any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I just wonder, since we have council and them on board, whether we should amend or go to council now and put these two projects behind us.
We could,
Just take care of those right now.
yeah, got no issue with that. Justin, I'm assuming you're prepared as usual?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so the recommendation from Mr. Warnick was go right from loan review and then go right into the projects that we've just mentioned, and we can go into the initial project resolution. I know we have the applicant also available, so page 29 of your packet is the first initial project resolution. So as we described, there are two projects. Initial project resolution, Watertown Renewable LLC, the North Project. It's resolution number 08.04.2022.02. It's a resolution of the Jefferson County Industrial Development Agency accepting an application submitted by Watertown Renewables LLC with respect to a certain project as described below, authorizing scheduling and conduct a public hearing with respect to the project, describing the forms of financial assistance being contemplated by the agency, adopting findings with respect to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SEQR, and authorizing the negotiation of certain agreements relating to this project. The second whereas clause describes the location, tax parcels, and the size of the project, which is 3.5 megawatt AC solar with a 2.85 megawatt AC battery storage. I won't read off the parcel number. The fifth and sixth whereas clauses go through the neg deck from the town of Watertown, and the fact that we have in our hands all of those findings. So that is the initial project resolution. There's applications, site maps, financial cost benefit analysis, and things of that nature going all the way through and including, I think, page 93. So it's a rather large. I'm sure everybody's read every single word of it, and we can have a very robust discussion. But that's the initial project resolution. Did I miss anything, Justin?
That sums it up.
Okay. So with that, we have to ask for motion in a second, then we can have some discussion if there's any.
Yes.
Paul, a motion to accept?
Second.
Ed, okay. Discussion, either additional from council or from the board.
So in terms of decommissioning, we don't have to have anything in any of these additional applications anymore because the county's covering that?
The decommissioning would have been approved at the town level. These projects are approved at that level, not at the county or the state level. So hopefully the town has put that into place.
Because they used to have kind of a line item with a value amount for decommissioning, and none of these applications have that anymore as far as cost or soft cost or everything.
Maybe we should go to council for the applicant. Do you have a decommissioning plan that you've executed with the town?
Good morning, everyone. Yep, we have a plan and the bond has already been issued with the town, posted to the town for decommissioning for both projects.
May I ask one more question?
Go ahead.
Can you tell us what the net decommissioning cost bond is, the amount?
I don't have that offhand, but I can look it up if you give me 1 minute.
Well, you can tell us when we get to the second project, but,
Okay.
so that's all in place, the bond's in place, and you're ready to move forward?
Yep, bonds in place with the town, work with their attorney, all required documents for the town are in place. That's requested.
All right. Page 65 and 67 actually show the cost benefit analysis and also the projected inverted pilot schedule. Again, as Paul indicated, it is as close as we can get at this point without actually promulgated state rules. So we've done what we can with the information that we do have. The cost benefit on this project is 11-to-1. Benefit over cost, of course, not the other way around. And the 55% is the abatement, not the, correct. Okay, so this is very consistent with all of our prior projects.
Wait, that's the payment or that's the,
Was it 45% and
5,500 per megawatt?
no, there's a percentage.
no,
of
the
all payments.
55%.
Is it 45% abated or 55% abated? I forget what that number is in that column.
I think it means-
45 abated.
Okay,
They're paying.
I always forget because the heading confuses me. All right, so this is very consistent
That's a
with
percentage.
all of our prior projects, in fact, much higher. Much lower, excuse me, I said that backwards. All right, so with that, we have a first, a second. We've given some more facts to the project. This is a roll call. Yes, this is a roll call vote. So Peggy, please.
Rob,
Me, yes. Okay. Sorry, I
Dave?
had to think. Yes.
John,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Okay, that initial project resolution carries. If we skip to page 94 of our packet, again, all the way through like 130 something or other, is that packet with the cost and benefit on page 130 and the pilot schedule on 132. So similar to the last initial project resolution, Watertown Renewables LLC, this is the South Project, resolution 08.04.2022.03. Resolution of the Jefferson County Industrial Development Agency accepting an application submitted by Watertown Renewables LLC with respect to a certain project as described below, authorizing and scheduling it to conduct a public hearing with respect to the project, describing the forms of financial assistance being contemplated by the agency, adopting findings with respect to the State Environmental Quality Review Act seeker, and authorizing the negotiation of certain agreements relating to the project. Again, the second whereas clause cites it's a 3.5 megawatt AC solar project, 2.85 megawatt battery storage. It cites the physical address and parcel number. The fifth and sixth whereas clauses again declare that we've received and reviewed the net deck from Town of Watertown, and we actually have in hands all of the seeker findings. The cost of benefit is on page 130. This project is also 11-to-1, benefit over cost, and the pilot schedule is on page 132, which I didn't study it, but it's slightly different. So there's some slight differences in this project. We're talking hundreds of dollars,
It's
not
just
substantial.
because of the difference in number of acres and.
Yeah, but it's rather the same. So with that, do we have a motion to accept this initial project resolution?
So, second.
We'll give Bill the first and Dave the second, okay? Any further discussion?
One quick question I have, on all these 20 megawatt renewable projects, in this case, they're adding 6 more megawatts into the system. Is National Grid licensed or in their supply agreements? Are they taking 100% of that? Or are there a lot of times when they're only going to be, when those projects are actually not energizing for 3 or 4 days? How does it?
I'm sure that's ISO, that's based on demand.
Yeah.
I think they're obligated to buy it, not necessarily obligated to use it. If there's no
Is
demand.
this specific to this project, Ed?
Yeah,
Because
well,
they have
all 20
required,
megawatts. I'm saying 20 megawatts.
well,
These
these
are
all have,
Well,
these community solars
less
have to be 5 megawatts or less.
Right.
To be a community
Right.
solar, and they have requirements that X amount of it has to go to residential and
right.
X amount has to go to commercial. This is a little different because of the National Grid
Yeah.
program for the battery storage.
Yeah, I think Ed's question was, apart from the battery storage, it's something Dallas might answer, is, I think he's asking, we hear about limited capacity of the grid, so is this power all going onto the grid, or is it timed where the grid can't handle it and it's just sitting there?
But is it my understanding that they're going to get paid for it under the 5 whether with their agreement with National Grid, whether they're energizing it or not?
I have no idea.
I mean, is that something Dallas?
If you want to answer, yeah, Dallas, I don't know if that's too complicated of a question to answer. It's many tiers, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I can answer. Apologies. I couldn't really hear you that well. But,
So the question was, assuming, let's for simplicity say you're adding 8 megawatts of new power because of these projects, which about 6 of it is battery storage. So Ed's question was, from time to time, does National Grid have to use all of it? Or do you actually try to determine when you will or won't charge your batteries?
Yeah, so the community solar project portion, the solar portion is just like any other community solar project. It continues to go directly to the grid. Now the storage section, what makes this project so different and why it's called a non-Mars alternative project and why we were awarded it with National Grid is because National Grid is going to actually call on us to discharge at peak hours. So this solution was put in place because of the issues they're having with the Coffin substation and the peak loads that have over the last few years, more development, more people, more housing developments. Maybe when you flip a light on at 5:30 when you get home, that's called peak load. So National Grid calls on us to discharge our battery at those times. So that's why we entered into a contract with National Grid. There are other projects where you can just discharge your battery at different times, most of the time you want to discharge at peak. But this one's actually more tied to National Grid calling on us to help alleviate the capacity issues they've been having at the substation level.
Yeah, I think Ed's question regards the community solar aspect of it, I think stems from, we see, like with a wind farm, for example, there's times when they shut the wind farm down because they can't take the power onto the grid, but that's not the situation with the community solar, is it? I mean, it's always going onto the grid.
Yeah, so that's where we go through what we call an interconnection study, a Caesar study. If the grid cannot handle, they'll downsize us. We're kind of at the whim of what National Grid says we can connect and what capacity they have available on the grid. These projects will fit. If someone were to come behind us and try to put another 5 megawatts in the same feeder, the grid in 3 days couldn't handle it. So National Grid would deny the connection of power. That's why you see these, pickup of a few random solar projects all kind of in one area, and then you don't see another one because the utility can't handle any more capacity.
Okay, thank you, Dallas. So while you have the floor, did you find that answer for the prior question of the decommissioning value?
Yes, it did.
Okay,
We issued a bond for $340,000.
is that per project or total?
That's total.
Okay, so 170 per project, roughly.
Yep, it turns out to be about $30,000, $30,000 per megawatt, which is the NYSERDA recommended.
Okay,
amount.
very good.
So-
Justin, do we have anything to add to all of the discussion and the description thus far?
No, I think you summed it up pretty well. We're just at the starting point with the project resolutions. as we advance to the public hearings, we can dial in any of the other details that the board and the company are looking at for the pilot.
Yep. So we have the initial project resolution, first, second, we've had a discussion. Now we get into discovery mode after we take action. So I will ask Peggy to do the roll call vote.
Rob,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes,
Paul.
Yes.
Motion carries.
so this is really gonna be the most. most
One thing,
productive, most efficient.
back on decommissioning to John's question.
Dallas,
One- Okay, go ahead, Dave.
this is Dallas and Genevieve, you can leave, but we'll let you know as soon as we set the date for the public hearing.
Yeah.
So you're aware of it.
If you wish to stay, you can as well.
Yeah.
Back to John's question. The one thing that
Thank you.
that came out of the public hearing on the Borelex project is the town of Hounsfield was demanding that there be a separate bond for decommissioning the Hounsfield portion of the project and a separate bond issued to the town of Watertown for decommissioning the town of Watertown side. That was something that, comments they made to the ORES board. And it may be something, Ed, that Orleans and Clayton should be thinking about, is because it's crossing town lines. You know, do you have two decommissioning bonds in Orleans and Clayton?
Sure.
But that was the one comment that I saw that the town had made.
Dave, unfinished business, 146 Arsenal, 3K Sunday, sorry. Is that you?
Yep, yeah, so, I mean, things are moving ahead with the project. They're working, they're breaking ground. We're meeting with them weekly now on progress reports, so.
Okay. Page 26 of our packet, we have resolution 08.04, 2022.01, Town of Hounsfield wastewater system. Whereas the Town of Hounsfield has established a wastewater district to serve the Watertown International Airport and property known as the Business Complex at Watertown International, owned by Jefferson County IDA, the agency located at State Route 12F. Whereas County of Jefferson has allotted $1.5 million from the U.S. Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds to the agency for the purpose of assisting the town of Hounsfield in constructing the wastewater system to serve the above-mentioned wastewater district. And we have a blank in here, so there's some discussion. Now therefore, be it resolved, the Board of Directors of the agency does hereby approve an initial grant to the town of Hounsfield, an amount not to exceed a blank, which the town shall use to contract for engineering services to design wastewater system. So I think we need a first and second,
So,
and during discussion, we'll fill in the blank.
Well,
or
just
what are
for
you
your
looking
proposal,
for?
so I was hoping to get a final number, and be able to get in contact with the engineers if they're out perhaps, but, so I think we're safe, we put not to exceed 400,000 for now, so. I mean, I think it's gonna be about 3 something, but, you know, it'll be
Okay.
whatever the actual.
So the request is the blank is gonna be 400,000 for the motion we're gonna ask for. Okay. So I'll reread that. Now, we have $1.5 million allotted, money in hand, sewer district. Our board of directors does hereby approve an initial grant to the town of Hounsfield, an amount not to exceed $400,000, which the town should use to contract for engineering services to design the wastewater system. This has nothing to do with the construction of it.
Right, so the town is gonna be applying for they had a WIA grant before, they lost it before we got the county money, because they didn't have enough money to move ahead. So they're gonna reapply. That deadline is September 9th, but a couple of benefits of doing the design now. If they get it done, if they do that application showing they're already under contract to design the project, it makes EFC, when they review the project, more comfortable it's going to move ahead if they fund it, because they're already doing design. And it also just saves time on, from really getting it actually built. If the design's already done, we don't waste 6 months trying to get that done.
Okay.
So.
Do we have a
Yes,
motion?
with
Paul?
a $400,000 amendment to that proposed
Second.
resolution.
I'll second it.
Ed, second. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
So,
Page,
quick comment, so if engineering fees typically are 10 or 15% of a project, is that gonna be a $4 or $5 million build out roughly? Any idea?
The solar project's gonna be about 3.6?
3.8.
3.8,
So
3.8,
about
yeah.
a $4 million.
Yeah, so I think this is gonna be more than what's needed, I just, since I don't have a final number, I'd rather have some.
Page 27, we had some discussion because this was a late entry to, we'll still discuss it. We have some plans here. I had recommended we can have a discussion about, so this is the Lawman Group building review. We're obligated to review the plans and this and that, and there's no pilot application thus yet. We didn't adequately have an opportunity to
No.
advertise to the rest of the industrial park. So I had suggested that we not pull it from the
I think it's fine, yeah.
packet, but really just discuss it.
We're fine, yeah.
Not ask for any
Yeah,
action
right.
today. And we have time,
Right.
Dave said we have time in the September board
'Cause-
meeting to not.
Yeah, because they don't have final, yeah, they're not close to final approval yet by the planning board, but at least as long as I had it, get you thinking about it. It's got the 75-foot setback, the parking's on the side. I've got the more detail. I apologize for the quality, I didn't look at the quality of the scan I did. I was waiting for them to.
It's
Yeah.
low.
Yeah, I know. I scanned it with my phone app, which normally does pretty good, but I think it being so large,
Yeah.
when it shrunk it down, but
I thought maybe an Etch-a-Sketch was involved.
but they will, they will be sending me the digital copies of the appropriate scale, so I can send out. So what I'll do is in the coming week, I'll get a note sent out, as we've done with the last couple of projects.
But with
Park tenants.
that, unless the board is against this recommendation, we haven't had time. We've been very sensitive about trying to get the park involved as a community. It's almost like a homeowners association. And we didn't really have adequate time to do that. So as long as the board is okay with
I would,
not taking action today,
we don't have to take formal action, but
we can discuss.
I would think that, while they're working on design and like that, that if anyone has an issue, or if someone thinks there's an issue, that we let them know ahead of time.
Yeah, I was
So
gonna
they
ask
don't
that.
lose another 30
I was
days.
definitely gonna ask if they're gonna see anything that, oh my God, there's no way that that's gonna be an allowable use, the obvious things that we see. So with Dave's
I think it's,
Converse's recommendation, let's have a discussion.
I mean, it's a manufacturing facility. I think it's definitely an allowed use, within our park and everything, and as long as they meet the setbacks and everything.
And there is a real drawing back there, if anybody.
Well, we created a park committee a while ago. We haven't met in a lifetime. Your plan is to send these plans out once you get the digital copies to member of the park. for
Yeah,
their
we
comment.
did it with Metalcraft and we did it with the FedEx mobile.
So my
loading.
suggestion would be that we send the plans out, give the park owners a timeline to send comments back on it. And then maybe we call the park committee together to look at those to see if there's anything. I mean, our initial, part of this is the deed restrictions require us to look at the building design.
Right.
From what I could glean, I don't really see anything with the building design. But we also made an agreement with the town through this process that they'll be looking for us to opine whether or not we believe it complies with the deed restrictions as outlined in the deed. So I think getting comments back from the park tenants, and I'm only thinking of the new park, not everybody, because this is really section 2 of the park.
And
okay?
so so the two we've done so far in the last few months. When we
Have been
did-
in the old park.
Well, no, so the one we did for the, for Metalcraft,
Is in the
I
old-
sent only to those that are part of that old covenant.
Yeah.
For the FedEx, when they did that mobile loading
Okay,
dock,
I'm
I only
sorry.
sent to those in the new park. So this would be the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, because the whole park isn't subject to one set of covenants. They're similar.
And that way we can take into account, if we have a meeting at the park, we can take into account any comments from the board and the park owners on the plans. And then we can, if there's any desire to send comments to the town of Watertown Planning Board, we could, because that was something they had asked us to do, if I recall correctly. Marshall, Dave?
Excuse me?
This is speculation building or actually?
No, it's an actual building. That's where they're going to be locating, they're consolidating there for their operations. So they got a couple of different facilities. Sometimes when they're on site doing ductwork, stuff like that, they're kind of running the stuff to another location to bend, to break the metal, and then bring it back on site. This will sort of prefab everything on.
They have a
On site.
fabrication.
This is a lawman.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he has a fabrication over on Outer Bradley Street. there's not enough power there to run his brakes. So what they do is they cut the metal, put it on the truck, run it to Sackett's Harbor, do the brake, put it back on a truck, run it back out and continue their fabrication on Bradley Street. They're gonna consolidate all of this into the one facility here, add an additional 10 employees because they're gonna increase production and everything. And then move their offices from Sackett's right into here too, so that they can be a whole consolidation fabrication facility.
Now, there was a second proposed project.
He's got a second, so that's lot 10. He's planning to do a mirror image building on lot 11 next door at some point. But he's not doing that yet.
Okay, well, my concern is, let's not forget that the town had told us that they aren't interested in doing spec buildings anymore either. So when that one goes forward, unlike this one where they have an actual plan, the company and what they're going to be doing, that if a spec building probably is not going to be well received by the town based upon what they're planning for.
Yeah, I'm not
They told us-
sure that he's necessarily planning to go ahead. He said, I'm eventually like to build.
Okay, so that's
I think that
not,
may be when he gets a 10.
so they won't be looking for an approval for a second.
They're only looking for approval for this one that they're actually going to occupy.
I'm staring at this drawing and unless I'm just totally, I can't find the front setback. And I will question if the parking in the front is allowed, because it is in the front of the building, it passes the front building line. And I know that's big discussions we've had in the past. I don't see a setback in the front of Little Tree Drive. There's no dimension anywhere.
Are there more drawings there, Rob?
Well,
Yeah.
the other drawing's an elevation drawing, but the other ones are kind of locked, so I don't want to like ruin this. Maybe it's on some of the sets of drawings, but I can't find the front setback, Dave Zembiak. And the parking is definitely past the front building line, so that is by zoning in the front of the building, and I thought that was not allowed. I know we've had discussions about that, but maybe that's where it needs to be.
Yeah, it is to the side, but I see it now looking at it, it does come past the front a little bit.
Yeah, and I don't know, is this parking existing over here, or is this also?
So there's nothing there right now.
Okay, because it looks as though that's a speculation to kind of continue.
That's
on.
where they're planning to be able
The
to
other-
build another
other
building.
developments, okay. So those would be kind of two questions to get past some of the debates we've had in the past about parking and things of that nature. It looks, based on scale, that this is a huge amount of distance between the front of the building to Little Drive where the property line is, but I can't find a dimension. I don't see a dimension.
I'll check with the planning board on that.
So we can expect that the board will be, board and park tenants will be getting digital copies of the plan.
Yes,
Okay.
that's what we've been doing for the last,
Perfect.
But as far as allowed use and improvements, you answered my question. I just needed to understand that by pilot, you can't give somebody a pilot and take some other part of their business out of business. But as you described, it's a consolidation, so it actually isn't allowed use under pilot. And it seems to be an allowed use by physical, what they're going to perform. Now we just got to get to the dimensions and
well,
questions.
it's similar to what we're going to do for Highlight when they were going to move out to the airport, but same thing, consolidating and expanding. Yep.
Any other comments from the board?
Those parking spots are probably acceptable as long as they're 75 foot setback, would it not be? Isn't that the setback from? 75
Without
feet?
really knowing what our covenants and all that stuff say, I don't, for some reason, I thought parking was not allowed in the front, maybe.
It's not, it's supposed to be the side or the rear.
Yeah, so since it exceeds the front of this building line, that's technically the front. They might have to shove that back a little bit or something. It maybe not, but it also looks like this is probably about 150 feet, so I think you only need 75 feet in front.
75, yeah. They
So they
said
might have
75,
adequate
yeah.
room to sort of shove the building a
Yeah.
little forward. Or the parking a little.
I know they've been sent several times. Maybe you should when you send the diagrams out, send the deed, at least the page that lists the deed covenants for development out to the board.
So no other questions from the board?
But yeah, I mean, there's no sense, you might better, don't give them obvious, violations, to begin with, my God.
I think just asking the question.
Yeah,
I'm staring at this thing, I really cannot find a dimension there. You can scale it, but Rob Aiken said, there's a pile of drawings back here, but I can't flip the page. They're kind of attached.
Rob two.
The other Rob,
The
the
other
good
Well, he was
Rob,
wrong too.
the good Rob. I
Instead
have
of
the same
Rob also.
problem at work, we have two Robs, but he's the bad Rob, I'm the good Rob. See, flip flops. All right, so as we discussed, we're not gonna take, physical action today in reviewing the plans. We've had some discussion. I think Dave, if we can kind of get back.
Yep.
So that when this
Yep.
comes in front of the
Yep.
board next, we've gotten feedback from,
Right.
any of the park tenants.
And I'll check real
which-
quick, maybe they can modify that before you send it out to the tenants.
I think just maybe line by line, make our life easy, address, the covenants have been covered. Here's the dimension, this has been covered, that's been covered. Those have been some of the defects we've had to argue about in the past. All right. Nothing left in this meeting unless somebody has other unfinished business.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, do we have a second?
Yes.
Okay, Bill. Any, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay. We are adjourned. There is no whatever alphabet soup that other one is, CDFC. We don't, that meeting's not.
You said you had a name. We got an employee.
I
Let me get it for you.
CFDC. There's